Hello everyone, today we're doing the cast off or refly, more aggressive prototypical style on the Meteor 75 HD, which has the O4 inside. I am using a fairly new radio to me, which is the Radiomaster GX12, as well as the Goggles 3. If you're wondering about using other goggles or other DJI remotes with something with the O4, I have a chart linked down in the video description. What we're looking at here is my speed runs, about 4 to 6 batteries, usually kind of at the end of my flying. In this case, it wasn't the end of my flying, but it was the end of my indoor flying, and it did break some things, so we'll have to take a look at that. The first thing you'll notice in this, I'm running a race mode. So you have to have the Goggles 3, to my knowledge, and I am using the Goggles 3 in order to get race mode. That is supposed to, well, it's going to decrease our image quality a little bit, as you'll see here, and it's supposed to decrease your latency and make it, I think it's supposed to make it more consistent, so it doesn't it's not as variable. For me, I didn't, for those asking about that race mode, I don't think I'm an accomplished enough pilot in order to either feel it, or I'm just not subjective enough to feel it. I can feel it more, the latency difference, when I go from analog or HD0 quads to when I go to DJI quads or a walk snail. As far as staying on a DJI and switching back and forth between race mode on and off, it's not discernible enough to me. So unfortunately, I can't give you anything more than, I don't know if it's going to make a difference unless you're, a really sensitive person, or you're just a top flight pilot that can take advantage of that feature. So this is one of my less crashy flights, of course. I fly inside and I crash quite often. I am flying a smaller battery. I'm flying the 450 milliamp Beta FPV lava battery. The 550s give you about a minute and a half more, and it's closer to a minute and 20 seconds more. So this flight's going to be just under 3 minutes, and you can push and get 4 minutes of flight in this style. Although I will say I didn't have any clean flights on a 550. All those flights had some crashes, at least a couple of crashes in them. So that's not all just flight time. There's some crash time built into those flight times that I'm reporting. If you're looking for more information, tech specs, weights, measures, batteries, different sorts of things about the quad, especially slower flying sorts of stuff, I covered that in a previous video. Especially if you're looking at video smoothness, that video will be an important one to look at, because the DJI O4 does have a rock steady built into it, which is kind of a stabilization mode, and this one didn't necessarily do great in that regard. I do think Beta FPV has resolved at least some part of it inside, because I've got a few reports from some people who have received theirs and they didn't have any issues. So maybe it was just mine, or maybe they made a change when they got to production and they took care of that issue. 75 millimeter, especially Pro inside, is going to be challenging to fly. You are running a larger prop. It is still 1S, and the 75 Pro means that you're not running a 40 millimeter prop, you're actually running a 45 millimeter prop. And that makes the quad slightly bigger than other 75 millimeters. I think it comes in around 80 millimeters. But the flight ended, you saw there, 241. Again, on a 550, you do get about a minute 20, maybe a minute 25 more flight time in that same sort of flight style. Of course, if you're looking for cruising, I've got another video on that. Outdoor, and you can see that I have switched away from race mode, so we get to, even though I think I have the camera set to record at 1080p, 60 frames a second, and that's so I can sync up the DVR recording that we're currently looking at with my flight audio camera, which is a cell phone sitting on the table next to me, which you can see as we fly by from time to time. This is post-work, I believe, or is this my lunch hour flight? Now I'm forgetting which flight I picked here. Let me see here. I think this is, I don't know if I can see myself here a little bit. It's funny, I'm narrating this through myself. This is post-work, so I've still got my work clothes on. And my specs outside of, I don't know what that move was. I got real sloppy there. And I got sloppy, oh, this recalls now. This isn't my best flight necessarily outside, and this is on the 550, but there's some fun stuff that happens with me being sloppy and a little bit of something later. 54 degrees, so like I said, the weather got nicer, and this is about 540. And the wind is 8 to 10 miles an hour, although it felt more substantial than that. If you're wondering about the shaky video, yeah, that's something that this suffers from outside. It doesn't get rock stable footage outside. And I'm seeing that more and more with O3s. After I did that chimney dive and it looked real sloppy, it was hard to see, but in the top left-hand corner we have our throttle value. I was maxed out trying to recover from that. And now we've done the little slalom, then we've seen our furry little friend, so we're going to play with him, trying to get him to run, and he does, and I chase after him. I wanted to do a squirrel chase. That's actually why I did all these passes, is I saw him, and we have squirrels in the yard all the time, and it's kind of fun to chase them around, especially when you can kind of, like a car chase in FPV, where you see people chasing cars around a track. I do it with squirrels, and sometimes they make it into videos such as this one. But he's going to bail here over the fence, and then we'll go on with the rest of the flight. I mentioned it earlier, I'm getting more and more comfortable with the GX12 from Radio Master. That is a different style of radio for me. I'm usually using the gamepad style, and I am a pincher. So I'm still probably adjusting to that a little bit. And you can see when I do some of those little moves around that tree, you might have to go back, that there's some rough spots in either the PID tune or the motor's ability to control the prop to, effectively smooth out some of that stuff at speed. And you can hear it on the flight audio too. At speed, when you're doing the turns or when you go to high throttle, you get the bouncing in there, and the soft mounting on that camera is very soft. And we may need to see a change, but I've got other quads that don't have soft mounting on the camera, and their video is either just as good or even potentially better. So, yeah, my props could be a little bit banged up. I did change out my props after I did my indoor flying, so that I had to have at least undamaged props to start with on my outdoor flying. If you don't know, if you don't follow the channel, I fly these things over the course of a period of time where I usually get at least 5 flight days. And with these quads that are inside, I can fly them even more. So in this particular case, I think I've had a good 40-50 flights on it. Probably 40-50 flights inside, not including my slow cruisy flights, and then probably another series of, over the course of about 3 days outside, maybe 15 or 16. But our flight ended. You can see there our battery voltage has come up to 3.52. I usually want to try to nail it right at 3.5, but I didn't quite get there, in a flight time of 3:30. So a couple of things. Hopefully you can see it here that I have added some glue to the antenna here. So I had a mishap that happened here that we're looking at. We're on one of my first days outside. I kind of bonked around, and then I ended up on the pool cover, which has a bunch of water from the snow melting. And you can kind of see the waves of the water, and then all of a sudden the video cuts out. And that was a moment where I thought, oh no. But that was a thermal shutdown by the O4 VTX. So the antenna had popped off. The heat got to it, and then it stopped functioning. So I think it's fine. Obviously, I've flown it since, because that was on my first day out. I did put an ORT antenna on here. I keep a pack of these around. These are some of the best, if not the best, antennas for micros. They're well made, they're reliable, and they're very, very light. But I did put glue here, and if you're wondering what kind of glue, I used this, and it does come from, I got mine from Tiny Whoop, and it's got this super small little nose or applicator, whatever you want to call it, on here, and well, first use, it comes out pretty nice and easy, but after then, you've got to really squeeze and hunker down on it to get it to come out, after it's gotten kind of gummed up in there. So you're going to have to put some pressure on it. Again, available from Tiny Whoop E6000. You can probably find at other sources. And I bring that up because my favorite glue, which is Welder, comes in this big tubes, been using this for years. It got pulled from the market, and I don't know why. I just have gotten some questions from people looking for it, and then I went looking for it here, a couple of months ago or something, and I can't find it on the market anymore. So either the company decided they didn't want to sell it, or there became some sort of consumer hazard or something. I'm not certain, but so for right now, this is the glue that if you're looking for glue to put on your antenna or to fix your plastics on your whoops, that's a good one to have. So obviously the frame is different too, right? We've got a black frame here, and previously it was gray. That was what I was flying indoor, and you can see that like this post is all the way gone. Part of this post is gone, and you can see how kind of light gray these two posts are, and that's because of the stress. And I think that we need 12 millimeter screws because what are in here are 10 millimeter. The problem is sourcing those. I myself have looked for 12 millimeter screws. Before I started recording this video, I couldn't find 12 millimeter screws. I talked to one manufacturer suggesting they get 12 millimeter screws. They offered that they were having trouble sourcing them as well. So 12 millimeter screws, while it's I don't know why they haven't been developed for or mass produced for some reason. That's what I think we need to do so we can get more of the screw down into the post, because you can see it doesn't even go much more than halfway into the post. So that's going to be a weak spot. And that's not specific to just this one. Pretty much anything with the O4 and probably other VTXs where your stack starts to get up above the flat plane here, that's going to put more stress on those posts. Especially as you crash and make sorts of contact with this. I've not been a fan for a long time of mounts that aren't pretty sturdy as far as having multiple posts and multiple mount points. I think this is, while I can't say it's not going to be durable because I only use the one canopy, I worry about this movement because the camera's already got a fair bit of movement in its soft mounting. We don't have a post up front here. I've got other quads that I've flown that do, I think, a better job of holding the camera. Like on the Sub 250, they have a whoop that runs the same sort of mount. So it's a 3-position mount, but it's 3 in the front, whereas this is 3 side, 3 in the rear, I guess is the best way I can put it. So that was something else I'm wondering isn't contributing to some of our camera movement and therefore giving us less than really stable footage, especially outdoor, where we have some wind discombobulating us and stuff like that. That's my damage report as far as this frame goes. That was the only damage I had was this post. So, you know, unless somebody else can find the 12 millimeter M1.4 12 millimeter screws, I think if you're going to be buying whoops with O4s, you're probably going to be wanting to stock up on frames because they are going to be a little bit more proud outside of the traditional all-in-one mounting arena. Also on the O4 camera, some people haven't had an issue with them breaking, so I took this same E6000 and applied some of that, as you see here in the picture, to the rear of the camera connector, being sure not to get it on the MIPI connector. And that is a nice thing about having this really thin nose applicator. While it's difficult to squeeze out, you can be super precise on where the glue is going. The glue does take a little bit of time to cure, so it's not going to be a quick turnaround like super glue or something like that. But doing something I think is wise, because I have had a load of crashes with this, especially inside. And when I was doing those speed runs, those are faster sorts of crashes inside. And, you know, the only thing that I damaged, like I said, is this post. So for me, it turned out to be pretty durable, and making these changes long term, I think, are wise. You know, glue your UFL down, but don't use a glue that won't peel away. Don't use like super glue or something that just won't give away. You want something you can peel off. That way, if you damage the antenna, you don't, you know, have to solder an antenna onto this point. You want to be able to peel the glue off and then disconnect the UFL connector. Same way with adding it to the top of the camera. I'm noticing that my face camera, the camera up top, is kind of acting up. I don't know what's going on with that, so I'm going to wrap this video up with my desk cam here. If you do have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise about the Meteor75 Pro O4, please let me know down in the comments section below. I appreciate your time, and thanks for watching.